Coast to coast, around the world, this is the Wells Report, a huge news day. Incredible events last night as Mar-a-Lago, President Donald Trump's private residence, was raided by the FBI. We've got the entire story for you, and we will bring it to you. Coming up in moments, we have something else that's going on, and that will be the White House press briefing. This will be the first opportunity we've had to hear from the administration regarding the circumstance with respect to Donald Trump and his circumstances, with regard to what's been going on with whether or not the White House had any idea of what was going on with the excuse me just a second. What was going on with the actual raid itself, whether the White House knew anything about it. And we are looking for more information from the White House on this in moments, and we will hopefully have it here before too long. We are going to take a look. We're going to take a look at this and figure out just exactly what the White House knew and when it knew it, and we can go from there. So once again, welcome to the Wells Report. I am John David Wells, and I sincerely appreciate the fact that you are here. We are waiting once again for the White House press briefing, but in the meantime, let's get to the news. The FBI executed a search warrant yesterday at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Palm Beach, Florida, a part of an investigation into the handling of presidential documents. This includes classified documents that may have been brought there, according to three people familiar with the situation speaking to CNN. The former president confirmed that FBI agents were at Mar-a-Lago and said they even broke into my safe. He was at Trump Tower in New York when the search warrant was executed in Florida. My beautiful home, Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida, is currently under siege, raided, and occupied by a large group of FBI agents. The extraordinary move to search the home of a former president raises the stakes for the Justice Department and comes as Trump's legal problems continue on multiple fronts. Trump is also expected in the coming months to announce that he will launch another bid for the White House in 2024. The Justice Department has known two active investigations connected to the former president, one in an effort to overturn the 2020 presidential election, and January 6, 2021. Others involve the handling of classified documents. The search began early Monday morning. Law enforcement personnel appeared to be focused on the area of the club where President Trump's offices and personal quarters are. This according to a person familiar with the matter. The FBI's search included examining where documents were kept. According to another person familiar with the investigation, and boxes of items were taken following the National Archives' recovering of White House records from Mar-a-Lago in recent months. You may have heard that indeed there was a circumstance whereby the National Archives were missing or looking for some 15 boxes of materials taken from the White House on the exit of President Trump. Those boxes were returned in January of this year. It's August. Now, were there more documents? Well, we don't know, but we will go through the reporting for you so that you know exactly what is going on. The FBI search included examining where the documents were kept. And Trump's son Eric told Fox host Sean Hannity the purposes of the raid, from what they said, was because the National Archives wanted to corroborate whether or not Donald Trump had any documents in his possession. Well, that's not the way that works. That is not the way that works. Normally, when you are in a situation whereby you are looking for something that requires a search warrant, the Constitution is clear. The warrant has to specify what items are to be searched for. Well, if they're trying to find out something that wasn't there, how would they know they were there to look for in the first place? That's a problem. We also happen to know the Florida magistrate's name. We'll get that to you coming up a little bit later on. The Florida magistrate who signed off on this search warrant will give you that information as we continue here on the Wells Report. Christina Bobb, Trump's attorney, said the FBI seized documents. President Trump and his legal team have been cooperative with the FBI and DOJ every step of the way. The FBI did conduct an unannounced raid and seized paper, said Bobb. There was communication between the FBI and U.S. Secret Service before the search warrant was executed, a person familiar with the matter said, allowing for the FBI to exercise or access the estate without any complications. There's only a small Secret Service contingent at Mar-a-Lago when President Trump is not there. CNN reached out to the FBI for comment. The Justice Department has declined to comment on any network, but this is CNN copy, and they say they have not responded to CNN. This is a surprise. That we have not heard from the Justice Department? This is unprecedented. In the history of the United States of America, no president's private residence has been raided by federal law enforcement for any reason at any time. We're still trying to figure out just exactly why that happened. The DOJ needed to be in front of cameras today. Attorney General Merrick Garland needed to be in front of cameras today. Where is he? There was an interesting piece of news that happened yesterday. One of the big time Democrat politicos, David Axelrod, said that he was absolutely abundantly sure that not only did Merrick Garland not know about the raid, but neither did President Biden. I find that hard to believe. I find it incredibly hard to believe. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that is not true. We'll find out. That's just a supposition on my part. Once again, I'm not reporting that as news. I'm just reporting that I think there's something badly wrong here when the DOJ does something that nobody has ever done in the history of this nation, a raid on a president's private home. And nobody from the Department of Justice is willing to speak. There's something wrong here. Something badly wrong. Just my opinion. The National Archives, charged with collecting and sorting presidential material, has previously said at least 15 boxes of records were recovered from Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort, sent to them by the president, including some that were classified. The president has a security clearance. Those are his papers. He gets to have classified material. In early June, a handful of investigators made a rare visit to the property seeking more information about potentially classified material from Trump's time in the White House that had been taken to Florida. The four investigators, including Jay Bratt, chief of the Counterintelligence and Export Control Section at the Justice Department, sat down with two of Trump's attorneys, Bob and Evan Corcoran, according to a source present for the meeting. At the beginning of the meeting, Trump stopped by and greeted the investigators near the dining room after he left without answering any questions. The investigators asked the attorneys if they could see where President Trump was storing the documents. The attorneys took the investigators to a basement room where boxes of materials were being stored. The investigators looked around the room before eventually leaving. A second source said that President Trump came in to say hi and made small talk but left while the attorneys spoke with investigators. The source said that some documents shown to the investigators had top secret markings. 5 days later, on June 8th, Trump's attorneys received a letter from investigators asking them to further secure the room where the documents were stored. Aides subsequently added a padlock to the room. In April and May, aides to Trump at Mar-a-Lago were interviewed by the FBI as part of the probe of handling the presidential records, according to a source familiar with the matter. There is information out there at this particular moment that maybe there was an inside source to what was going on at Mar-a-Lago. In other words, that may have triggered the FBI response. More about that coming up in just a moment. It is a federal crime to remove classified documents wrongly, and if you are filling out that affidavit, you have to list the crime. You can list that as the crime, said Ellie Honig, a former federal and state prosecutor and a CNN senior legal analyst. Honig told CNN's Aaron Burnett out front that the timing of the search held within the long-standing department rule not to execute politically sensitive moves within 90 days of an election. Today is just about 90 days exactly out from the midterms. I think maybe 91 or 92. That policy may be the reason they did it today, because they wanted to stay clear of if they were interpreting that as part of the 90-day rule. Another real problem here is this could have been handled with a subpoena. Why a raid? Why would they do this? These are the questions being asked. We don't have the answers yet, but once again, we are waiting for a White House press briefing. It has been delayed, and we are expecting somebody to say something about it. Certainly, questions will be asked. Whether they're answered or not, I have no idea. Karine Jean-Pierre will be running that unless she gets some help, which she has been availing herself of at other times in this particular presidential term. Honig told CNN's, I told you about that. Today's about 90 days out, and they're talking about the 90-day rule. The Republican National Committee chairwoman, Ronna McDaniel, claimed in a statement that the Democrats continually weaponize the bureaucracy against Republicans. And a number of Republican lawmakers came to the former president's defense on social media. Notably, Kevin McCarthy wrote that he had seen enough. Attorney General Merrick Garland, preserve your documents and clear your calendar. I've seen enough. The Department of Justice has reached an intolerable state of weaponized politicization. And the Republican leader wrote, when Republicans take back the House, we will conduct immediate oversight of this department, follow the facts, and leave no stone unturned. Here's a problem with that. This is electioneering. In other words, what they're doing is using this as an opportunity to try to push people to the ballot box, which, of course, will happen. But what I am very much interested in is why is there not more of a hue and cry from Republican Party leadership in both the House and the Senate for something to be explained right now? Remember, the Republican Party is famous for condemning Donald Trump with faint praise. This is something that has been happening virtually the entire time President Trump has been in the national scene, and certainly during his administration. Remember, this is a Donald Trump versus politicians, not so much Donald Trump, the Republican, versus Democrats. But whatever is happening here, it must have an awful lot of people very, very frightened to up the ante from a standpoint of federal law enforcement in this way. There must be something very, very ugly out there. And I'm not talking about against President Trump. I'm talking about what they believe President Trump might expose if he gets another shot at the Oval Office. Again, just a supposition on my part, not the news. By the way, in case you're wondering, Kevin McCarthy wrote that he had seen enough, and GOP Senator Rick Scott of Florida said we need answers now. The FBI must explain what they were doing today and why. But the chair of the House Oversight Committee, which is investigating Trump's handling of the documents, called on the Justice Department to fully investigate the former president's handling of information. Presidents have a solemn duty to protect American national security. Allegations that former President Trump put our security at risk by mishandling classified information warrant the utmost scrutiny. This was according to Democrat Representative Carolyn Maloney. The White House press briefing is now underway. We are going to switch to that, and we will have that for you coming up in just a couple of moments. Also, I want to know about this from you. Has anything you have seen changed your mind about President Trump for good or ill? 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. We will take your calls. We will put you on the air. The White House press briefing is coming up in just a couple of moments. You are listening to the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment.
World that the Department of Justice carried out this sort of operation on a former president, that it could even create the appearance of politically motivated prosecutors.
So first off, and you've heard us say this many times at this podium, you've heard the president say this, the Justice Department conducts investigations independently, and we leave any law enforcement matters to them. It would not be appropriate for us to comment on any ongoing investigations. I can say that President Biden has been unequivocal since the campaign. He believes in the rule of law, in the independence of the Justice Department investigations, that those investigations should be free from political influence, and he has held that commitment as president. I want to also remind you all of what he said on January 7th of 2021, when he then nominated Merrick Garland to be the Attorney General. And I quote, "We need to restore the honor, the integrity of the independence of the Department of Justice in this nation that has been so badly damaged. And so many former leaders of that department in both parties have so testified and stated that. I want to be clear to those who lead this department who you will serve. You won't work for me. You are not the president or the vice president's lawyer. Your loyalty is not to me. It's to the law, the Constitution, the people of this nation to guarantee justice, end quote. So I would refer you to the Department of Justice.
And just lastly, does the White House, if the president believe it would be helpful, both domestically and signal that sends abroad, for the Department of Justice to be more open about the reasons for that search warrant, the underlying evidence there?
Again, this is not something I'm going to comment on today or from here at all. This goes to the Department of Justice, and that's where I refer you to.
Right. Thank you. The president this morning stressed that the CHIPS Act will create jobs, will grow the economy, but when will Americans feel the impact of this legislation? When will this law impact supply chains? When might prices go down because of this?
So Secretary Raimondo actually spoke to this a little bit, and the department is already taking steps to set up the...
Okay, we're going to keep listening in here, and we'll take you back as the questions go back to this raid and reaction.
Well, that didn't take long, did it? That did not take long, did it? Okay, let's go. Let's go here. First of all, to the chat, Lois Floyd, good to see you. How are you? I'm so glad you're here. Thanks very much for being a part of our part of the show today. Let's see here. What am I doing wrong? Ah. Okay. That's kind of strange. What is going on here? Oh, no, that's Da Vinci. Okay. There we go. All right. And once again, good afternoon. This is the Wells Report. We are reporting on the president's raid last night at his residence. It has been an incredibly bad, at least appearing event, not just for President Trump, but also for the entire nation. The circumstance is that at no time in the history of this nation has anything like this ever happened. We just ask you a question. We ask you a question about whether or not anything you've seen so far changes your opinion about President Trump and the possibilities that he may indeed be running for office. I told you that we were going to go to the White House press office and we were going to try to find some kind of a comment from the White House on this. Karine Jean-Pierre took to the podium, answered one question by saying that she was not going to answer any questions. She referred everybody to the DOJ. The DOJ is completely silent today. So once again, something of this import and the DOJ isn't saying anything? All right. Well, I want to know whether or not anything that has happened so far has changed your opinion, good or ill, about President Trump. Okay? I want to know about that. You can call me at 817-379-2172. That's 817-379-2172. All right, so let's go to Yvonne, who says the DOJ is trying to say there are more documents. Well, if you have a search warrant, you have to already know whether there are more documents or not. You have to specifically list what is to be seized, the things to be searched for, and what is to be seized. That's in the Constitution. Hillary Clinton sure wasn't raided in regards to documents. They're just trying to take out Trump for 2024, says Buddy. Gary says this is Civil War stuff. We're not a banana republic. Biden knew about it. We don't know that. There's also something else I want to say. And I want to say this. I want to say this seriously now. Okay, if I can get this correct. Thank you. All right. So anyway, where were we? Oh, yeah. Now is not the time to do anything silly. When it comes to the Civil War stuff, Civil War 2.0 has been quoted. Now is the time for us to wait until we have more information from the DOJ. I suspect that they don't have what would be necessary to pull off something this dramatic and this inflammatory at this particular time. That's what I suspect. They wouldn't do something like this. Many people say they wouldn't do something like this unless they had something pretty serious. So far, nothing. No anonymous sources from the DOJ. No information whatsoever. I don't know whether that points to, okay, we've got something, or, oh my God, we didn't get anything. Either of those two things could, although I think that if they actually got something, if they knew what they were looking for, then they would already have a statement out. It looks to me like what they did was they took everything they get their hands on, and now they're going over it, and so far they haven't found anything. I don't know that that's the case. More of your chats coming up in just a couple of seconds. Also, by the way, don't forget, you can call 817-379-2172. Has anything you've seen so far regarding the raid on President Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate, has anything changed your mind to the good or ill about President Trump, and why? 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Operator is standing by. I'm here. This is where you get to speak. You get to talk about what you think is important. Tell us what you see. Tell us what you believe. Tell us who you believe and why. 817-379-2172. We're waiting for your telephone call and your chat. This is The Wells Report, back with more in just a moment. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. That is your invitation to join this broadcast and tell us what you think about the raid at Mar-a-Lago. This is a special edition of the Wells Report, as you might expect. We are bringing you the news of the day regarding the raid on Mar-a-Lago. And we're moving to Fox News now. This is their update. Some of this information we just gave you, sources told Fox News today that investigators from the Justice Department visited Mar-a-Lago in June for a meeting about turning over records as a part of the investigation into documents former President Donald Trump allegedly took with him from the White House to his private residence when he left office in January of 2021. Trump's attorneys were present at that meeting. The sources say the former president himself stopped by, made some small talk, and moved on with his business. The meeting came months after the National Archives, with assistance from the Justice Department, was able to get boxes of documents sent back to Washington, D.C. after expressing concern that they were in Florida. That happened in January. It's August. The June meeting was about additional documents that were being sought, but following it, the Justice Department and the FBI felt they weren't getting the same cooperation they had been receiving earlier in the probe, according to a source with knowledge of negotiations between Trump's team and federal entities. The perceived lack of cooperation is why a search warrant was requested and ultimately executed yesterday at Trump's Palm Beach property. This is interesting. From 5 minutes ago, White House, and DOJ, and FBI all silent about this raid. They were asked today whether Americans deserve to know more about why former President Trump's residence was raided. Quote, "We did not have notice of the reported action, would refer you to the Justice Department for any additional information," a White House official told Fox Digital, repeating a previous statement. There is more, and what we will tell you is this, is that Karine Jean-Pierre, today in the White House press briefing room, what she did was refer everybody to the DOJ. Again, DOJ, FBI, and the White House, all silent about the raid. The chat room is buzzing, as you might expect. Yvonne says, I can believe that President Biden did not know, but not Garland. Gary says retaliation is required. I wonder what that retaliation would be. If there indeed is any kind of citizen retaliation, I have to say this, and it's very important that you listen. No weapons, no Molotov cocktails, no weapons, no violence, no crossing of police barriers. I put that out on Facebook last night. Also on I did a couple of tweets last night. All you need do is stand with like-minded Americans, bring an American flag and your copy of the Constitution, and sing the national anthem. Don't cross police barriers. Don't bring weapons. Don't bring weapons of any kind. Don't do it. Anybody who does bring weapons, Molotov cocktails, crosses police barriers, are working for the other side. So retaliation, we'll see. Will the Republican Party have the stones to actually do something about this? There's a lot of brave rhetoric, but I needed to see more brave rhetoric throughout the Trump administration. And we didn't get it. There was no defense of this president by the Republican Party during his term as president of the United States. There was none. In fact, several Republicans took the other side on that particular issue, because this is about Trump versus politicians, not Republican Trump versus the Democrat Party. You need to keep that in mind. But I cannot put enough importance on what we, the people, may or may not do. No weapons, no crossing of police barriers. All you need to do is show up in numbers. The entire country got turned on its head in January 6th because of 15,000 people that were on the Capitol grounds. 15,000 people. What are they going to do when 10 million show up? All you need is numbers. That's all you need. So keep that in mind and remember this. I know I just said it, but I'm saying it again. Do not cross police barriers. Anybody who does is working for the other side on this. Do not create a pretext of some kind of legitimacy for what is the only raid on a presidential private residence ever in the history of the United States. Don't do anything yet. Pay very close attention to what happens in the next few days. I am shocked that the White House, the FBI, and the DOJ have no comment today. And once again, it could be because they didn't find anything in those boxes. In the things that they brought, all the rest of it was sent back to the National Archives in January. So what's happening here? If this was a giant whiff, that is going to have hugely detrimental effects on what is going on with regard to the Democrat Party's future, and certainly the future of what people are calling the regime. And I was thinking about that today. I was thinking, should I start referring to the Biden administration and the DOJ, the FBI, and the IRS as the regime? They're certainly acting like a regime from some third world country that decides to take out their political enemies through the paper thin ideology of their legal system. So if the Biden administration wants to become the regime, all they need to do is persist. Because this is awful, at least in my opinion. So let's get back to some of the tweets that we have, some of the tweets and some of the chats. Let's see. I had not heard the DOJ had removed boxes from Mar-a-Lago previously. Actually, the DOJ did not remove boxes. President Trump sent those boxes back himself. That wasn't the DOJ. Let's see. Mike says that Biden did not know. However, Obama Incorporated did. Get me in position. I'll drop anyone you point me at. No, we're not doing that. Let's stay civil. Why be civil? Fight fire with fire. Well, until we get more answers, we need to keep our powder dry, says Mike. Sage advice. They are baiting us to lash out. They absolutely are. That is what's going on here. Gary Abshire is also reflecting what Kevin McCarthy said, enough is enough. And it's time for us to take action. We can. In some 92 days, we'll go to the voting booth. And I have some words on that I'm going to share a little bit later on. Have we heard from Mitch McConnell yet? There is information. There is information about the senators, the Republican senators actually saying something. We've got that coming up for you next hour here on the Wells Report. Stay where you are. Let's see. Langston, who is a Biden supporter, says, amazing how no one was upset about Trump's use of the DOJ to say that the election was stolen, but y'all are upset about the FBI raid because Trump took classified documents to Mar-a-Lago. Okay, here's the circumstance about this. First of all, the DOJ did not intercede on any of the accusations regarding the 2020 election by President Trump. So in other words, the president did not use the DOJ regarding any of that. As a matter of fact, Bill Barr, the attorney general at the time, made it abundantly clear that he was not having anything to do with any kind of accusation regarding the 2020 election, and indeed resigned shortly after that language started coming out of the Oval Office with President Trump and his points of view regarding the 2020 election. But he says Biden's handlers may not have known about it beforehand. President Biden doesn't know what day of the week it is, so it doesn't matter. The AG may be giving White House cover in this. Gary says FBI equals the American KGB. Show us the guy and we'll invent the crime. That was actually Stalin, who said that. Let's see. And then there's this. The raid just confirmed that he is a crook. The raid just confirmed that President Trump is a crook. How? In other words, we no longer have due process. It's fascinating how many people want to throw away many important parts of the Bill of Rights. I believe that's the Sixth Amendment, about due process. None of this has been about due process. Any due process that has been taken has shown nothing, absolutely nothing. And says the White House knew, but the president did not know. Let's see. Does she think the American people are completely stupid, asks Kelly, talking about Karine Jean-Pierre, saying there is no statement from the White House on this. No, I don't believe that she thinks the American people are completely stupid. I think what she's doing is she's following her instructions. The instructions are to refer everything to the DOJ. The DOJ isn't speaking. Attorney General Merrick Garland is not speaking. How is it that you pull off a raid on a president's private home for the first time in history and don't have a statement ready the next day? That is significant. That is significant. Let's see. Kelly says, I'm so damn tired of the liars and crooks that run this country. It is time they go. The election's coming. Being upset because President Trump broke the law is ludicrous. Trump broke the law again. No, that is not the case. That is not the case. The President of the United States has a top secret or better security clearance. Those are his papers. He can bring those with him. The National Archives has a claim on those papers. And this is a give and take that has happened with every presidential administration up to now. The National Archives and the outgoing presidential administrations always have a tug of war about all this. Democrats are terrified of Trump. They're going to do all they can to make it impossible for him to run again. Well, they better have something. They had better have something, because this is going to cost people their jobs. Langston says 18 U.S. Code Section 2071 contains a similar prohibition specifically directed at custodians of public records. The president is not a custodian of public records. He is an owner of those records. Any custodian of public record who willfully and unlawfully conceals, removes, mutilates, obliterates, falsifies, or destroy any record shall be fined not more than $2,000 or imprisoned. Okay, that's what that says, but it doesn't necessarily apply to the president. Remember, the president has executive privilege to stop things just like this. Whether you agree or disagree, the idea that the party in power and a very biased DOJ, and we know it's biased because the actual code that you're discussing right here, 18 U.S. Code Section 2071, that did apply to Hillary Clinton. Where was the raid on Chappaqua? Where was that? She flat destroyed subpoenaed documents. Where is the fine of no more than $2,000 or imprisonment? Sandy Berger, on his way out the door, stuffed classified material in his pants, in his underwear, in his socks, and nothing ever happened. Where was the raid on Sandy Berger's home? And those people, they are indeed custodians of public records. That applies. Now, there is a difference between Hillary Clinton and President Trump. She was not a president. So she does not have the same protections the president does. And they know this. Let's see, all it does is galvanize us and will bring more Trump supporters in. As a matter of fact, there are people on both sides of the aisle saying that what has happened last night will guarantee that President Trump is nominated to be the Republican standard bearer in 2024. Nate Maple says, good afternoon, JD. It seems that America has revealed her Gestapo, and it is the FBI and the Department of Justice. Gail says, no, I have not changed my mind about President Trump. I have not changed my mind, and that's what I'm asking you. Has any of this changed your mind about President Trump? Yes or no, and why? 817-379-2712. That's 817-379-217. No, it's 2712. Sorry about that. 817-379-2172. There we go. Cannot wait until the Republicans take this country back from leftist criminals. Jeff says, let's peacefully protest like BLM does with bricks and Molotov cocktails. No, that is exactly what they're hoping for. That will legitimize everything we've seen so far. You must not. Don't take anything except a copy of the Constitution of the United States and an American flag and your singing voice. Don't forget your singing voice. Jeff Emerson says they will plant stuff. That is possible. They have done it before. The FBI I'm talking about. They have manufactured evidence before. They've misrepresented their case before the FISA court. Is it possible they could do it again? It most certainly is. Was anybody there overseeing the actual gathering of this material at Mar-a-Lago? No. Does that matter? No. Because if there's going to be any ledger domain regarding those particular records, then it could happen as soon as the FBI takes control of them. Based on previous exchanges, okay, that's fine. Let's see. It's changed my mind on Trump. He was a softie for not doing the same thing with Hunter and Hillary. And we'll have more as we continue. Give us a call, 817-379-2172. This is The Wells Report. You are listening to The Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. More chats in just a couple of moments as the chat room is buzzing today with the news that the President of the United States, the former President, Donald Trump, had his home raided by the FBI yesterday morning very early. We got the news after what would have been the Wells Report's conclusion yesterday. We finally found information about the raid at about 7 p.m. Eastern Time. By that time, the Wells Report would have been off the air, but I wasn't on the air yesterday because I couldn't see. More about that coming up in just a little bit. So we were just talking about Langston, who said something about the fact that that the President Trump, had tried to weaponize the DOJ. He's referring to several Democrats, by the way, who now support the use of the DOJ as a weapon. They criticized President Trump's they criticized President Trump for allegedly trying to weaponize the Justice Department. In September of 2019, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi tweeted about Trump trying to weaponize the Justice Department after it began investigating automakers who had reached a deal with California regarding fuel efficiency standards. Hardly the same kind of situation. Hardly the same thing. I think that's a bit of straw grasping. As far as high Republican officials asking for more information, Maryland Governor Larry Hogan called for, quote, full transparency and accountability from the federal government following the FBI raid and former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence in Florida. Even before yesterday's events at Mar-a-Lago, America was already dangerously divided. These are unprecedented circumstances that require unprecedented transparency and accountability from our government institutions. Why? That's true. So why is the DOJ silent today? I think it's because they have a real problem. Just my opinion. Just my opinion. The American people deserve to know all the facts as soon as possible. I call on the Biden administration to release at minimum the documents authorizing the FBI search. He's discussing the actual search warrant, and we will see whether or not that happens. I doubt that there are any other documents available on that particular circumstance. He went on to say if the federal government cannot ultimately provide overwhelming evidence the action was absolutely necessary, then it will only undermine faith in democracy and the rule of law and further divide America. He's got a point. This being reported from the Daily Mail. The FBI raid on Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence was likely sparked by new information from an informant and a breakdown in cooperation between the agency and the former president, according to a former agent talking to the Daily Mail. Retired FBI Special Agent in Charge Michael Tabman, who served the agency for 24 years, said a raid of this level of sensitivity would need to be approved by Attorney General Merrick Garland. I think someone gave them information indicating these documents are there, adding two hypothetical insider revelations. You have not been told the truth about their existence. You are not getting them unless you come and get them, would be one of them. I think that there was inside information, call it an informant if you will. I believe either someone told them something or some other information was stumbled upon, which was kind of conclusive in their minds. They had to go now to get that, or they're not getting it, talking about the information at Mar-a-Lago. Let's see. Let's get back to some of these. Let's get back to some of these things. Langston says Trump refused to relinquish the documents. We have no information on that. The only documents that were actually talked about by the National Archives were returned by the president in January. Once again, Langston, you simply have to start. You need to spin up. Let's see. I'm so tired of trying to talk to someone who completely ignores what their own party is doing. Well, there are an awful lot of people that are useful idiots, Kelly. Useful idiots in the classic Soviet sense. People who buy into the dogma of a particular party. And that is all there is in those people's worlds. Just as there are political sociopaths, there are follower sociopaths. And they make it possible. Let's see. Gary says, let's put a raid on the Clintons and President Obama for retaliation. Well, once again, you got to have some reason to do that. Now, the DOJ had better have a good reason to do it. Let me tell you something. This is going to get mighty ugly mighty fast. Let's see. Turnabout is fair play when Bidens are out of power. Jamie Lubeck says that. And Jamie, you're completely correct. What they're doing is establishing an entire new set of precedents when it comes to presidents. Precedents when it comes to presidents of the United States. The Democrat Party may believe that what they can do is bluster their way out of any kind of investigation into the Biden administration. But I don't see that being an issue. I don't believe that people who vote Republican day in and day out, election in and election out, I cannot believe that they would not absolutely demand that an investigation of what has been called the Biden crime family occur as soon as the Republican Party takes power. And if they don't do it, then everything that I've said about the Republican Party being complicit in the enablement of Democrat policy will have been proven true. Nothing in the universe is without balance. Nothing in the universe is without balance. And I can tell you this. What we will see are things we have never seen with regards to how Washington works. Donald Trump has exposed so many ugly things about the government of the United States. This may be another one. You are watching the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. We have 2 more hours after this one. Make sure that if you like this one, make sure you give us a thumbs up and pass it around to your friends. Important information today, important opportunities to debate. It is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more in just a moment. Okie dokie. I'm going to take a technical break. We'll be back in a moment. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Thanks very much for joining us on a special edition of this broadcast. Raid on Mar-a-Lago. The President of the United States, for the first time in history, has had his private residence raided by a federal law enforcement agency, specifically the FBI. We're giving you complete coverage on this today. We're paying attention to all the other news sources in America about this, and as it is a breaking story, we are covering it as such here on the Wells Report. There are all kinds of news articles. We are giving as many of them to you as possible. We also want to say a couple of other things here. This just in, for those people who live in Texas, there was an incredible crime was perpetrated on two young Muslim girls, Sarah and Amina Saeed. Sarah was 17 years old. Amina was 18. They had their dreams cut short when they were shot and killed. Home videos give a glimpse of their lives and so on. The outset of this is that the jury has returned a verdict, and we will have that to you as soon as we know. The father, Yasser Saeed, is accused of their murder, and we will see whether or not the jury agrees that indeed the father of these two young women was the perpetrator of their murder in a taxi cab in Arlington, Texas. We'll have more about that as soon as it becomes available here on the Wells Report. Former President Donald Trump decried the weaponization of the Department of Justice after an unprecedented FBI search of his Mar-a-Lago home in Palm Beach, Florida. This is USA Today copy from Josh Meyer and Joey Garrison. I'm fascinated that they are not calling it a raid because, of course, when any of the associates of President Trump were arrested or had their homes searched under circumstance like this, it was a raid. Well, now what this is being called is the unprecedented FBI search. Interesting. President Trump compared the search, which happened to fall on the 48th anniversary of President Richard Nixon's resignation, to the 1972 break-in and cover-up of Democrat National Committee headquarters at the Watergate Hotel. He said, "Here in reverse, Democrats broke into the home of the 45th President of the United States," said Trump. Not exactly true. There was a search warrant signed by a federal magistrate. Historians, legal analysts, former FBI officials said the reframing of FBI action as a political attack is inaccurate. I'm not exactly sure that's the case. Just my opinion. I'm not sure that that's the case. Now, Garrett Graff, a historian and author of Watergate, A New History, says, quote, "The burden of proof to execute a warrant like this would be, for all intents and purposes, unprecedented in the history of the Department of Justice. Under the law, any search would need to be authorized by a federal judge. In this case, it was a federal magistrate, after finding probable cause that a crime had been committed." That's the thing. Is there probable cause? Or is this a fishing expedition? Well, we don't know. Let's see. Let me give you this from Rex Hupke of USA Today. As news of the FBI executing a search warrant on Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort home broke, supporters of the former president reacted in the kind of calm, measured tone we've come to expect from the Make America Great movement. Make America Great Again movement. Conservative radio host Wayne Allen Root, my former colleague at the USA Radio Network, wrote on the Trump-owned social media site Truth Social, "This is now officially Nazi Germany Gestapo meets Soviet Union KGB. Indeed, the Nazis and the KGB were famous for following proper legal channels and showing probable cause to obtain search warrants before conducting orderly and sanctioned search of another people's property." I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know what this guy's talking about. The Nazis, Gestapo, and the KGB were famous for doing whatever the hell they wanted to based on whatever it is that they thought was necessary at the time. In Stalin's word, show me the person and we'll show you the crime. Noted reasonable person, that's funny, a Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, that's probably sarcasm. "This is the rogue behavior of communist countries, not the United States of America. These are types of things that happen in countries during a civil war." Yeah, well, there have been a lot of people that have been throwing that around, And we'll see. Monica Crowley, a Treasury Department spokesman under Trump, responsibly tweeted, "This is it. This is the hill to die on." And I believe she is correct. My opinion. I believe she is correct. Let's see. Yvonne brings up the fact that Senator Cruz has indeed responded, but John Cornyn has not responded. Langston, once again, those are not his papers. They are absolutely his papers. They are completely his papers. There is no due process on 116 political prisoners, but no liberal burners and looters held indefinitely. Time to fight fire with fire. I'm sick and tired. We need to replace those rhinos that aren't outraged by this action. Cornyn is measuring the drapes for his retirement mansion. That is correct. I don't expect John Cornyn is going to run for re-election. I think he's done. Well, that's the only thing that explains what he's been up to. Let's see. Gary, need to throttle down there, buddy. Let's see what else. Where is the outrage over President Obama locking everything up? True. Where is the outrage over Hillary Clinton and her handling of classified information? Again, all this is true. All this is out there. And it's the hypocrisy that bugs me the most. We've been talking about this for a long time. What scares me is the number of IRS agents they have. There's no way they're going to use those people on people making $400,000 a year and up. I guess I'm going to have to catch JD later, says Cleo. No problem. Sandy Berger was investigated, convicted, was fined $50,000 and jailed. I'll double check that. I don't think that happened. Let's see. Let's see. What else is going on? This is the chat room, in case you're wondering. And so let's see. Yeah, you are blinded by Democrat policy. That's all you see. There is nothing else for you. That's, once again, that's a situation. Let's see. So disappointed how the FBI has turned out to be a hit squad for the left. At this particular moment, it looks like the DOJ is the secret police of the Democrat Party. So there you go. That is the latest on the chat. And we are bringing you more of the news. Let's see. So the loyalists are being calm, and that is very, very good. It is essential that people continue doing that. Getting back to some of the other senators, former Vice President Mike Pence and many Republicans are discussing and rallying around President Donald Trump. While House GOP leader Kevin McCarthy and other Republicans vowed to investigate the Department of Justice over the search, Vice President Mike Pence issued a tweet expressing his concern over the incident. "I share the deep concern of millions of Americans over the unprecedented search of the personal residence of Donald Trump." Pence, who like Trump is considering a 2024 presidential run, also tweeted some FBI agents, quote, "were found to be acting on political motivation during the Trump administration." Completely true. In what looked like a very carefully worded series of tweets, Pence tweeted that Attorney General Merrick Garland must give a full accounting to the American people as to why this action was taken and must do so immediately. He is completely silent as we come to this broadcast. Other Republicans, including Senate GOP leader Mitch McConnell, had not commented as of today, midday. In pledging to investigate should Republicans win the House, McCarthy issued a starker message to Attorney General Garland, quote, "preserve your documents and clear your calendar." Declaring that "I've had enough," McCarthy said the Justice Department has reached an intolerable state of weaponized politicization. Politicization. That's a harder word to say than politicization, but whatever. Democrats, for the most part, said the search was totally justified, giving Trump's troubling history of handling classified documents. I don't know what they're talking about. "No person is above the law," said House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, unless, of course, you count Hillary Clinton and Hunter Biden and Joe Biden's brothers and so on and so forth. Those people are clearly above the law. All right, so that is the latest there. By the way, Pence did call for an investigation into DOJ partisanship. Other senators that have said things, this from Fox News. Top Senate Republicans are demanding the FBI immediately release information about its raid of former President Trump's Florida estate, which they are calling a major law enforcement escalation against a former president. The statements from GOP Conference Chair John Barrasso, the Republican from Wyoming, Vice Conference Chair Joni Ernst, also the Republican from Iowa, National Republican Senatorial Committee Chair Rick Scott, the Republican from Florida, come as top Senate Republicans overall have been slower to comment on the raid than their counterparts in GOP leadership. Raiding a former president's home is unprecedented, said Barrasso. The Justice Department needs to quickly and transparently tell the American people who approved this raid and why it occurred. A totally unprecedented action by the DOJ and the FBI, the same agents who labeled parents domestic terrorists and sat on the sidelines while justices were threatened and churches were vandalized. The American people deserve answers now. The raid at Mar-a-Lago is incredibly concerning, especially given the Biden administration's history of going after parents and other political opponents, said Rick Scott. This is third world country stuff. We need answers now. The FBI must explain what they were doing today and why, continued Scott, the only member of the GOP leadership in the Senate to mention the raid as the day it happened yesterday. Multiple other members of Senate GOP leadership have not yet addressed the FBI raid. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, Minority Whip John Thune, Policy Chair Roy Blunt had not commented as of this morning. The offices did not immediately provide comment in response to requests from Fox News. House Republicans have been much more aggressive in their responses, with their top two members in the chamber commenting on Monday night. Minority Whip Steve Scalise called the raid a brazen weaponization of the FBI. Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy promised the GOP will conduct immediate oversight of the Justice Department if Republicans take over the chamber. Again, playing politics. Again, playing politics. The Republican Party needs to be calling on the and the DOJ and the FBI to immediately explain their actions. The election for continued power in the 2022 election, that's a sideshow. What we need to know is why it is that the secret police of the United States, the FBI, and the Department of Justice, why is it that they appear so dreadfully partisan against this president? And what they're doing is playing these cards. By the way, there's also a story out there that a judge has signed off on the Congress of the United States getting a hold of President Trump's tax returns. He doesn't need to go to President Trump on that. They don't have to go to President Trump on that. They can go to the IRS. They're in full possession of all of President Trump's tax returns and have been in perpetuity. And I don't know what a bunch of politicians are going to do with those tax returns that the IRS hasn't. Maybe this is all just to explain to us. Maybe that it's just a way to explain to us that, yeah, the IRS is coming. And once again, all these precedents that were set during the Trump administration and the Obama administration are coming home to roost. The American people no longer depend on 3 news channels. There are countless news channels, this being one of them. There's too much information out there for people to just say, well, the American people just don't know what they're doing. The American people do know what's happening. Communication is at a level that it's never been seen in the human endeavor, and word gets around. All I can do is call on the DOJ and the FBI to get to work immediately, and explain their actions. And they better have some very good reasons. They had better have some very good reasons. You are listening to The Wells Report. I am John David Wells. Stick around. We'll be back with more coming up in just a couple of moments. Thanks very much for being here today. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. Following the raid by the FBI to the private residence of former President Donald Trump, has anything changed your mind, either for good or ill, regarding the former president? Has this raid changed your mind regarding your beliefs regarding Donald Trump? Yes or no, and why? Telephone number again, 817-379-2172. We were talking about mishandling of classified information, and the name Sandy Berger came up, and I mentioned that nothing had happened to Sandy Berger. That was incorrect. Both Mike and Langston pointed out that Sandy Berger was fined $50,000, sentenced to serve 2 years probation and 100 hours of community service, stripped of his security clearance for 3 years. He also turned in his legal license. He no longer practices law. The Justice Department initially said Berger stole only copies of classified information and not the originals, which is irrelevant. The House Government Reform Committee later revealed that an unsupervised Berger had been given access to classified files of original, uncopied, uninventoried documents on terrorism. During the House Government Reform Committee hearings, Nancy Keegan-Smith, who was the director of the presidential document staff at the National Archives and Records Administration, acknowledged she had granted Berger access to original materials in her office. On December 20th, 2006, Inspector General Paul Brackfield, reported that Berger took a break to go outside with an escort. In total, during his visit, he removed documents. Mr. Berger said he placed the documents under a trailer in an accessible construction area outside of Archives 1, the main archives building. Berger acknowledged having later retrieved the documents from his construction area and returned with them to his office. By the way, in case you're wondering, Sandy Berger also lied to investigators about his taking of these classified materials. This is something that President Trump has not done, but it does set somewhat of a precedent that maybe President Trump has a misdemeanor ahead of him if they are able to somehow hang this on there. And once again, you've got to understand that there is a level of give and take between the National Archives and a president regarding their own personal papers. And those particular papers, while yes, certainly part of the National Archives and need to be, doesn't necessarily mean that that's always a smooth process. In point of fact, it's never been a smooth process as presidents assert control and ownership of certain paperworks that the National Archives would dispute. And like I said, this has happened many, many times in the past and will doubtless continue into the future, especially considering what's going on now. But I did want to clear that up. Thanks very much to both Gary and Langston for pointing that out. Yeah, my ego is not tied up in getting everything completely correct. So if you catch me doing something that's not correct, let's fix it. And that's exactly what we do here on the Wells Report. It's an interactive news show, and that's how it works. Many Republicans, including Republican National Committee Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel, attacked Democrats after news of the FBI search, saying that Biden himself must be investigated. There must be an immediate investigation and accountability into Joe Biden and his administration's weaponizing this department against their political opponents. The likely 2024 Republican candidate for president of the United States, said New York Representative Elise Stefanik. So there needs to be an immediate briefing from FBI Director Christopher Wray. The agency's actions were unprecedented and that he was unaware of any actual or alleged national security threat posed by the materials in Trump's possession. Once again, this is the news. What you do with it is your decision. I'm just trying to make sure that you know what's going on. There are many, many other things that we're going to be talking about here as we continue, including reactions. And it's amazing what these reactions are and where they're coming from. USA Today has a couple of pieces in their edition today that are eyebrow raising. I'll share those with you as we continue on the Wells Report. Our telephone number, 817-379-2172. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells, a special edition, in fact, raid on Mar-a-Lago. For the first time, an American president's private home has been raided by the FBI with, of course, the sign-off from the Department of Justice. It's never happened before. What's next? We will see. Let's continue with our coverage. Some very interesting things are being said about this from very interesting sources. Ingrid Jacques, who is a USA Today columnist, said this: the Democrats just gave former President Donald Trump another excuse to rally his troops. People on both sides of the political aisle are losing their minds over the FBI search on Trump's Florida home, Mar-a-Lago. Yet at this point, we still know very little about what led to the warrant and what may have been recovered, although it's reportedly tied to classified documents that Trump may have taken with him to taken from the White House into Mar-a-Lago. This will not stop the breathless speculation and giddiness on the left that perhaps this time this will be what makes the former president go away. Jacques says, good luck with that. Trump announced the news on social media that federal agents had raided his beautiful home, a move that allowed him to take control of the narrative right away. Sure, such a search on the home of the former president is unprecedented. It's a big deal. But now it's up to the FBI and the U.S. Department of Justice to prove that they had a good reason to do it. The FBI damaged its credibility throughout the Trump presidency, even before, when all too willingly bought into false Russian collusion claims brought by the Hillary Clinton campaign in 2016. The collusion hoax is what Democrats seized on to undermine the Trump administration from the beginning and gave rise to his first impeachment, which was unsuccessful. The political theater created by searching Trump's home in such dramatic fashion also happened to fall on August 8th, the same date as former President Richard Nixon announced his resignation in 1974. One observer on Twitter said, "This has a certain poetry to it." It also doesn't appear to be an accident. Just as it wasn't a coincidence, the FBI chose to raid the home of Michigan Republican gubernatorial hopeful Ryan Kelly and arrest him for his alleged actions on January 6th at the Capitol. That FBI raid took place the same day the congressional January 6th hearings into the riot began in June. Then Trump then is talking. Let's move on to some of these other things. Now, here's something else. This from CNN. Media commentators ranging from Donald Trump's strongest foes to most fervent allies appeared in agreement on one thing. The FBI raid of his Mar-a-Lago home may have handed him the 2024 Republican nomination. The FBI executed a search warrant of the former president's Florida residence on yesterday, stunning the news industry and incensing Trump and his supporters. Sources told Fox News Digital the search was in connection with materials that Trump took with him from his time as president. Sources also said the National Archives and Records Administration referred to the case to the Justice Department, which recovered 15 boxes of classified materials from his home. That happened in January. CNN commentator Alyssa Farah Griffin, who served as Trump's White House communications director but is now one of his fiercest critics, said on New Day that an empty-handed raid could send Trump to the White House. This, I'm hoping, goes beyond simply not complying with archiving laws or the Department of Justice. Or the Department of Justice just handed Donald Trump the Republican nomination and potentially the presidency. It's seen as some sort of massive overreach, not something incredibly serious. This is a very good day for Donald Trump. Now remember, that's from somebody who hates him. That is somebody who hates him and is now saying that this may essentially seal the deal on a second Trump presidency. So this comes also from USA Today. This from E.J. Montini. We need to take a break whether we like it or not. We don't know anything for certain yet about the results of a search warrant executed on former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. And yet news of the FBI raid has sent Trump and his supporters into a frenzy unseen since Anthony Perkins pulled back the shower curtain on Janet Leigh in Psycho. Trying to prove his Trump bona fides, for example, Republican House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy issued a statement on Twitter, reading in part, the Department of Justice has reached an intolerable state of weaponized politicization. What McCarthy knows, however, is what everyone in Washington, D.C. knows, that Garland is a cautious man. He does not make bold moves. He is not reckless. If anything, his critics call him overly cautious. Well, he better have the goods this time. He absolutely better have the goods this time. And then there's this, talking about strange people saying strange things under strange circumstances. Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has called on the Department of Justice to explain itself following a raid on former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago club. It's his home. Trump announced the FBI was raiding the Palm Beach, Florida location yesterday, with the Republicans claiming it was a weaponization of the DOJ. Now the Democrat Cuomo is saying the Justice Department has to provide information to show that it was not the case. Quote, DOJ must immediately explain the reason for its raid. It must be more than a search for inconsequential archives materials, or it will be viewed as a political tactic and undermine any future credibility, investigation, and legitimacy of the January 6th investigations. He is completely correct. Cuomo, who has both clashed with and worked with President Trump during the latter's presidency, did not appear to be saying this to defend Trump, rather to make sure his fellow Democrats don't lose credibility as they investigate the former president's role in the January 6th Capitol protests. A number of other Republicans have already been criticizing the raid, or at least the way it was conducted. The raid of Mar-a-Lago is another escalation in the weaponization of federal agencies against the regime's political opponents. While people like Hunter Biden get treated with kid gloves, said Republican Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Now the regime is getting another 87,000 IRS agents to wield against its adversaries. And then he said, banana republic. So let's spend a little bit of time on this. The IRS has been weaponized. We know that that's happened. Laura Lerner and all those people in the IRS going specifically after the political opposition during the Obama administration. The FBI itself has been snared fixing evidence to put before the FISA court. In fact, they knew that the evidence they were putting before the FISA court was not real, and they did so anyway to maintain wiretaps on President Trump's campaign workers. That is the best allusion to Watergate I've ever seen. That is the best allusion to spying on your political opponent. And that, by the way, the auspices of spying on the political opponent not only went through the FBI, but also through national technical means, courtesy of the CIA. So when you start looking at all of this, you start looking at a very monstrous deep state conspiracy. And that is what this is. Now, all those moves that were done up to this point, has cast the DOJ in a very, very difficult position, along with the FBI. CIA it's mostly sort of been tamped down. And the NSA was brilliant. They immediately got rid of all of their archives of information. At least they said they did. I mean, they just washed their hands of it and walked away. But CIA got snared because John Brennan can't keep his mouth shut. Also, DHS was involved in all of that. You know, all these ideas that somehow 800 people tried to pull off 800 unarmed people. There was one gun found that I've found so far. One gun. Anyway, I've seen 800 people trying to pull off a coup. Well, what is it when the director of the secret police, the director of national intelligence, the director of national homeland security, and all those other people try to snare a president and remove him from office over the will of the people? That's called a coup. That is called an actual honest-to-goodness coup. Something else that has never happened. Why? Well, because these people are horrifically afraid of Donald Trump. Why? Why is it that they feared a Donald Trump lame duck presidency so much that they pulled out all the stops to defeat him in 2020? What is it that President Trump knows? What is it? I'm sure that there will be a complete, if indeed the Republicans take control of the House of Representatives and even the Senate, I am sure that there are going to be amazing numbers of investigations. When I say I'm sure, I'm not as sure as I would be, say, for example, if the situation was reversed. I would be absolutely sure that the Democrats would do this because that's what they do. But the Republicans, in order to do that, have to grow a set of nads. And I don't know that they have it. I don't know I do not know that the Republican Party has what it takes to govern. I just don't. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. The Democrat Party has gone way too far on this. They look desperate to me. They look panicky. They look hysterical. And they are making mistakes, huge ones, and putting out precedents that will haunt them for decades. If indeed there is not blockbuster information coming out of this raid on Mar-a-Lago, the FBI and probably most of the DOJ, done. Absolutely done. So once again, I'm not saying they don't have the goods, but they better have them this time. They have failed 4 times already. 4 times. So what are they going to do? What are they going to do if they don't have anything? And every moment that goes by that the Attorney General of the United States says nothing points to an oopsie. That is what we're dealing with here. Yeah. Let's get back to some of the chats that are going on. Let's see. Joe says, "Hello, my fellow Trumpers. How is everyone?" Yeah, this is shameful. I think we're angry, Joe McNulty. Angry but subdued, except maybe Gary. Yeah. Gary's a scrapper, but we have to be cool. We have to be cool, collected, calm. We don't know anything. And we don't have to do anything. The only thing we have to do is make up our minds about who we're going to vote for. Let's see. Let's see what else. Then somebody there used to be this this advertising campaign for Pace Picante sauce. It was famous here in Texas. And the thing was, anybody who does not buy Pace Picante sauce, one of the actors in the commercial would say, "Get a rope." Yeah, okay. No. I think every Trump supporter should show up at every FBI headquarters, show the FBI we don't trust them. Where are the whistleblowers of the FBI? They're out there. They're out there. We've heard from a few of them. Let's see. But having had a little bit of experience dealing with the Dallas office of the FBI, I was a member of FBI InfraGard for a very long time. Be very careful about that. There's a road out in front of the office. You can probably pick it there if you'd like to, but just remember, you're playing with the FBI. And at this particular moment, the FBI has shown itself to be heavy-handed when it comes to the citizenry. Remember, the FBI, the DOJ, Merrick Garland, sicked FBI investigators on parents going to school board meetings. Another problem that they have. Let's see. Yeah, what you have to do is this. You have to be cool. You have to be cool about this, and you have to relax. Now, I also wanted to say something else. I'm going to say it here in just a couple of seconds. I have mentioned that I'm about 2 years ahead of what actually happens. And in this case, I'm a little more than 2 years ahead on this. On what will happen Election Day in 2022. And I want you to stick around for that. It's not that I'm not bragging. I do take pride in my news reporting, my analysis for both fact and bias. I take pride in my commentary, and I take pride in the fact that we debate. I take pride in all of it. But what I do want you to understand is that this analysis, especially when it's proven correct, is something that needs to, you need to remember this. You know, somebody said that I was when I did a Facebook post, that I was saying, join us on this broadcast today and have your say. 817-379-2172, by the way. Or join us on the chat. He said it was a shameless grab for ratings. I don't do this show for ratings. As a matter of fact, I don't do this show for money. And by the way, I have proof for that. I do this show for you. I do this show for us. I do this show for we, the people of the United States of America. And God willing, I'll be able to keep it going. But stick around. I said something a few years ago, a couple 2.5 years ago, that I'm going to bring back up. Those people who listen to the Wells Report will say, yeah, he did say that. And I'm going to say it for a reason. And that will happen next. You're listening to the Wells Report. Back with more in a moment. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. One of the FBI's former top 10 most wanted suspects was convicted of capital murder today, 12 years after allegedly carrying out honor killings against his two daughters in Texas. Bad writing there. After he's been convicted, it's no longer allegedly, he carried out the honor killings against his two daughters in Texas. Yasser Saeed, 65, was found guilty of capital murder in the deaths of 18-year-old Amina Saeed and 17-year-old Sarah Saeed. Prosecutors did not pursue the death penalty, meaning that Yasser Saeed receives an automatic life sentence. Prosecutor Laura Black said at the trial that Saeed was obsessed with possession and control. The sisters were found shot to death in a taxi parked near a hotel in Dallas, Texas. It was Irving, Texas, not Arlington. It happened on New Year's Day in 2008. Jurors heard a 911 call that Sarah Saeed made by cell phone, telling the operator her father had shot her and she was dying. "Help," said a crying voice on the 911 recording, later determined by police to be Sarah. "I'm dying. Oh my God, stop it." Sarah was shot 9 times. Amina Saeed was shot twice. A week before they were killed, the girl and mother fled their home in the Dallas suburb of Louisville, went to Oklahoma to escape Saeed. The sisters' boyfriends also joined them. Prosecutors said the sisters had become very scared for their lives and decided to leave after their father put a gun to Amina's head and threatened to kill her. And so, Yasser Saeed, convicted of capital murder in the death of his 2 daughters. I'm expecting, of course, the DOJ to immediately file hate crime charges against Yasser Saeed. I wonder if that will happen. So, this radio broadcast became reality on 9/11/2001. That story I've shared with you several times. And I swore that what I was going to do was I was going to report the news fairly, accurately, analyze it for fact. I would make commentary and then we'd debate the commentary, checks and balances through all of it. And in that process of first learning all the things I had to learn to be adequate at doing that job, because there's a lot more to news anchoring than simply reading a teleprompter. You have to have things, you have to have knowledge behind the stories. In that experience, I've been able to make analysis and make some pretty good predictions and assertions and forecasts. And before the 2016 presidential election, actually, it was before the 2016 election, I allowed as how that the Democrat Party had stopped being an American political party and had indeed become an anti-American political party. Now, as time has gone by, their anti-Americanism has ramped up and ramped up and ramped up. This happened through the Obama administration, the creation of the deep state, in other words, the political use of executive branch agencies to further political ends. That was tamped down with the election of Donald Trump, with Peter Strzok famously saying, "Don't worry, he's not going to get elected. We have an insurance policy." Nobody's ever asked him what that insurance policy actually was. I had a pretty good idea what it was, but I decided I wasn't going to say anything. But I remember coming up with a revelation of what that insurance policy might be. And based on American history, I literally burst into tears. But as I've watched the Democrat Party become an enemy of the state, I have tried to figure out a way to save the party. And that the way I figured it out was to once again implore you to stop voting for Democrats. Suddenly, comprehensively, across the board. The problem with that theory was, and I said that at the time, the problem with the theory is that, well, if you don't elect Democrats, who are you going to elect? Republicans? The Democrat Party operates in spite of the American people. The Republican Party simply ignores them. And so we don't have a whole lot of choice. So I modified my request. Don't vote for the same Democrats. The Democrat Party is unhinged. This is just my opinion. We need to stop electing Democrats. There will be no better time than this election to turn aside every Democrat candidate running for office. Whether you're a Democrat or not, if you are a Democrat and you love your party, you need to make sure that they understand that they are Americans first, Democrats second, and not the other way around. Believe me, I have been stingingly critical of the Republican Party as well. That's why I'm no longer a Republican. I'm a conservative, a constitutional conservative. And at some point in my life, I just might be one of the movers and shakers behind the possibility of creating the Conservative Party of the United States to truly represent conservative thought, a small government, and low taxes, and adherence to the Constitution as reasonable constructionists. But for crying out loud, we have to send a message to the Democrat Party. 2022 would be perfect. No Democrats in 2022. Back with more next hour. Okay, see you in a minute. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. What do we do here that's different than any other podcast or any other network news show? We report the news. We analyze the news for fact and bias. I point out each. I make commentary. That's just my opinion. That's not the news. And then we debate. We debate. And I hope you will. Two ways to do it. You can join us on the chat room. We're going to get to some of those chats here in just a couple of moments. And you can also call 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. It's the Wells Report. So we've been reporting on the raid at Mar-a-Lago last night. We have covered all the news that we have on it to this moment. We'll keep our eyes on it and let you know what's been going on. If you missed the first 2 hours, we have two podcasts that will provide a complete digest of where the state of play is on that story at this time. If you missed any of those, go back and see them. Because if you want to be informed, that's the way to do it. So, a couple of different things going on. I never thought I'd enjoy the sound of thunder more than I did just a couple of moments ago during the break. It's raining in Fort Worth, Texas. I can't believe it. It's been a very, very hot summer. It is beautiful outside, although the humidity just crossed 100%. I mean, it's steamy now, but boy, is it nice. And I enjoyed the soft falling straight down rain and the sound of thunder, and you may be able to hear some of that in the background. But it's true. It's true. It's nice to have some rain after a very hot summer. So let's get to some of these chats. People are talking about the rain. Let's see what is going on here. Yvonne, still dry in Louisville. I don't know. It may have been raining up there. It looks like that's where it's coming from. Let's see. Still dry in San Antonio, says Max Guadiano, one of the world's greatest U.S. Air Force Chief Master Sergeants. God bless you, Chief. Thanks for joining us today. Let's see. Joe McNulty was talking about something that I said just a moment ago. I was talking about how this would be a very good opportunity for the people of the United States to get control of one of its political parties, which is decidedly out of control, and there's only one way to do that, only one way to establish that control, and that is through votes. And we have an election coming up in some 90 days. And what I have said and if you care about the future of the Democrat Party, don't vote for them this time. The people of the United States have got to send an unequivocal message that the institutions of the United States are not intended to be used as ways to suppress the political opposition. And that is exactly what this Democrat Party is currently doing. That is what's happening. And we, the people, have to stop it. They will not stop themselves. The Republican Party simply does not have the strength of character to hold them accountable for their misconduct. They simply don't. There are a lot of people that say, well, as soon as we give them the House of Representatives and the Senate of the United States, then they'll go after these guys. Yeah, I remember them saying that they were going to abolish Obamacare 73 times. And then when it came time to actually do it, they choked. And then they didn't have anything to replace it with. They didn't come up with a plan, which was simple. The only thing you have to do to get control of healthcare in the United States, actually, there are two things. One, keep the government out of it. The government's regulatory process to make sure the drugs are safe, to make sure that standards of care are both defined and enforced, that's one thing. But to actually play around politically with the health of the United States, the CDC is a joke. The number one public health organization is nothing more than a political action committee And they were wrong and wrong and wrong, along with the political masters that they served. And so here we are in a circumstance where, once again, we see a Democrat Party completely out of control. And the only people that can control them are us. There are very few reasons to not pursue this course of action. There are very few reasons to avoid this. And I said this years ago. Don't vote for Democrats. Take them out of power. Force them to remake themselves into an American political party. Everybody should be about America first. The government of the United States of America must operate to the benefit of the people of the United States, not the poverty class of every country that's within walking distance. That government must work to the advantage and benefit of the people of the United States. And there's something else that I've been trying to say for a while, and I guess now is a good time. A lot of people in the Democrat Party are sneeringly critical of what they call MAGA and ultra MAGA. And every time they do that, they take a slap at 74 million Americans, at least 74 million. And what is overlooked by the mainstream media and for some reason mysteriously not discussed enough is what MAGA stands for. Make America Great Again. Make America great again. Why doesn't the Democrat leadership jump on board with that? Because they don't want to make America great again. That's the only logical conclusion. The ultra MAGA crowd, they're just a bunch of extremists. Right. Well, before you start talking about extremism in political parties, Mr. and Mrs. Democrat, maybe what you ought to do is look to your own house. Like, for example, you have people in your party that are full-on communists, socialist communists, a half a century of Cold War, culminating with the defeat of the political philosophy that these people espouse, now permeate your party and in a lot of ways have become the tail wagging the Democrat dog. You need to invite those people to leave the party. You need to say, okay, you're socialists, go back, go find another party. By all means, keep your seats. But we're not going to caucus with you. You're not going to caucus with us. And you are simply not going to move forward a socialist agenda with a Democrat label on it. That the Democrat Party hasn't done that is instructive. This show is not partisan. I'm not anti-Democrat. My wife is a Democrat. But she's a real Democrat. She's an American first and a Democrat second. And the Democrat Party is currently ruled by people who wish ill upon the United States of America and will use the institutions of this government to suppress and oppress their political enemies. This is not something that is just some sort of partisan charge. This is the news. I reported every single story of governmental abuse that the Democrats have perpetrated on the people of the United States. I reported on the politicization of all of these agencies: DHS, FBI, IRS, CIA. All of these agencies, I've reported on it. The CDC. I've told you that it was a danger. And then the deep state made itself apparent with the attempted coup against Donald Trump. And there were plenty of Republicans involved in that coup. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of Republicans I'd like to see retire. There really are. As a matter of fact, I was just talking to a friend of mine today. And I said, this isn't about Democrats and Republicans versus, this isn't about Democrats versus the United States. It's about politicians versus the United States. These federal politicians seem to believe that we are their play toy. We are their personal possessions, not just ourselves, but our money too. They spend it as if they have it in some sort of inconsequential piggy bank sitting on their bedroom dresser. The people of the United States work harder than any other people in the world. And we do not get enough from the government that we empower. It does not work for our interests. It works for the interests of poverty classes from around the world. It works to the interest of perhaps some of our greatest enemies. I cannot explain the Biden administration's conduct with the People's Republic of China and the Communist Party of China. I can't explain it. That takes me back to the unwillingness to toss communist socialists out of their own ranks. It seems as though they kind of like the People's Republic of China. They kind of like the political power that the Chinese Communist Party seems to wield. But the United States of America has a two-party political system. And that means it's basically a tug of war. You cannot win a tug of war from the middle. When Democrats and Republicans talk about the values of bipartisanship, you know what they're talking about? They're talking about ignoring us again. They're talking about cooperating to their own benefit, because what we have seen, certainly in my lifetime and probably in yours, is government of the government, for the government, by the government. It should be government of the people, by the people, for the people. The government should be making America great again, regardless of who is in charge. America first should not be something sneered at by one political party to another. America first should be the number one agenda item of the government of the United States. And we simply don't have those people in office. And again, it's not their fault. It's our fault. It's our responsibility to be better at the ballot box than we have been. We have continually elected people who want to harm the United States of America. Now we have seen the fruits of those labors, and we must stop it. To do otherwise risks the future of the greatest country God ever gave man. Just my opinion. What's yours? 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report, hour number 3. We do 3 podcasts every day. Make sure you check them out. Thanks very much for joining us today. We're keeping our eyes on the raid on Mar-a-Lago and the various news that's coming out of that. We'll be doing more of that at the bottom of the hour. There are other things in the news. Specifically, there are 4 primaries that are very important. Wisconsin, Minnesota, Kentucky, and Vermont. Make that Connecticut and Vermont. They're holding their primaries today. This from Fox News. A pivotal showdown for the Republican gubernatorial nomination in Battlegrounds, Wisconsin, takes center stage today. 4 states from New England to the upper Midwest are holding primaries. The fight for Wisconsin's GOP gubernatorial nomination between former conservative Lieutenant Governor Rebecca Kleefisch and businessman Tim Michels is the latest test of GOP clout between former President Donald Trump and former Vice President Mike Pence, one-time running mates who could potentially face off against each other for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination. Kleefisch and Michels are frontrunners in a field of 4 Republican candidates that also include state lawmaker Timothy Rathman. The GOP primary winner will face off in November with Democrat Governor Tony Evers, who faces no primary challenge but who is being heavily targeted by Republicans as he seeks a second term. In the meantime, Tim Michels is a multimillionaire owner of a construction company who in early June was endorsed by President Donald Trump. 2 weeks ago, Mike Pence once again broke with his former boss as he backed Kleefisch. There is no candidate for governor in America that's more capable, more experienced, or more proven conservative than Rebecca Kleefisch, said Pence as he teamed up with the former lieutenant governor at a campaign stop in suburban Milwaukee. Kleefisch touted that she's tested and proven and ready to go. She's the one who has won statewide 4 times. 2 days later, as he headlined a rally for Michels in Waukesha, President Trump charged that Rebecca Kleefisch does not have what it takes to beat Tony Evers. He's going to win if he runs against Rebecca. Asked by reporters on the eve of the primary for comments of Trump's derogatory attacks, Kleefisch responded, "No thoughts that I can share." That means she's been paying attention to Mike Pence. Mike Pence is one of the best politicians we've ever seen. He's really, really good. He is a real pro. And that kind of works to his disadvantage in some circles. I kind of like rough and ready and willing to call it like it is. You all right there? All right there, Odin? He went out in the rain. It's raining. It's for the first time this summer. It's rained. And I never saw a dog do this, but he was literally letting the raindrops hit his tongue. Never seen a dog do that. It's an amazing dog. By the way, Kleefisch is discounting Trump's endorsement of Michels as she emphasized in a Fox News interview that the voters of Wisconsin are going to be the ones who determine the outcome of the race. Completely correct. Just as it should be. Michels' campaign attempted to frame Kleefisch as a never-Trumper, writing an email to supporters in a primary eve that if we don't get Trump supporters to the poll to vote for Tim Michels, the never-Trumpers will win. Michels' campaign argued that if Kleefisch wins, the media will falsely report that Wisconsinites have rejected Trump's endorsement. Well, that's because it would be true. Michels also spent big bucks to run ads targeting Kleefisch, while the former lieutenant governor has criticized Michels, who owns a home in Connecticut, as a part-time Wisconsin resident. There's other information about that we're going to share, as these primaries are important, especially in the context of if I could wave a magic wand, what I would do is I would say, let the Democrats lose every race. And it's not because I hate Democrats. It's not because I think they're always wrong. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that the Democrat Party is turning itself into an enemy of the people. And somebody needs to get their attention before the people of the United States actually begin to believe it. We need 2 parties working to the benefit of this nation. We need 2 parties working to the greatness of America, quite literally making America great again. And that's not what the Democrat Party wants to do, it seems. And the people need to fix it. This is the Wells Report. Back in just a moment. This is the Wells Report, hour number 3. If you missed the first 2 hours, we had wall-to-wall coverage of the raid on Mar-a-Lago last night. And part of that coverage, I can't remember it was the hour before or last hour, I brought up the fact that the language had changed. It went from being an FBI raid to the FBI executing a search warrant. That was the language. I was trying to figure out why that all of a sudden happened because, whenever anybody was reporting on, say, for example, the leftist networks, that a Trump crony, a Trump ally, had been busted, it was absolutely a raid. Well, I think I may have gotten a clue here. It's very interesting. Former Kamala Harris aide Simone Sanders, now an MSNBC weekend host, pleaded with people to stop calling the FBI search of former President's Mar-a-Lago residence as a raid. Please, folks, stop calling it a raid. Those words may have been directed at her fellow MSNBC hosts and producers who used the raid language on the air Monday evening. Quote, the FBI raided Donald Trump's Florida home today on the 48th anniversary. Today's the 48th anniversary, the day that Republican President Richard Nixon announced he was resigning the presidency. This from Lawrence O'Donnell. Even former Democrat New York Governor Andrew Cuomo raised eyebrows on Twitter when he called on the Justice Department to justify the raid or else jeopardize other investigations like the one into the January 6th Capitol riot. MSNBC changed tack today, more hosts and reporters quoting Trump's raid language, but mostly describing it as a search instead. Already, the former president has called it a raid, and veteran FBI officials telling us it's more of a simple search, which is something they do routinely, reporter Carrie Sanders said today. There's only one problem with it, okay? You do not have a simple search of a former president's house with 20 or 30 FBI agents, including a bunch of guys wearing tactical gear. Dude, really? Just bring a lunchbox. Wear a nice suit. Wear some sexy sunglasses. Walk up with the paper and say, hey, me and my buddy want to go through some stuff. Here you go. The rest of these guys are workmen. They're going to carry stuff out. We're looking for some papers. But no, tactical gear everywhere. I've never really understood why so many guys in law enforcement carry so much junk. You really don't need all that stuff, guys. You need an IFAC, an individual first aid kit. You need some extra magazines. 3 ought to do it. And you need a pistol and maybe some snackies. That's really all you need. Water would be good. So there you go. Water, individual first aid kit, extra magazines, snackies. That's all you need. Really. Anyway, yeah, so Trump's statement about the FBI raid employed dramatic language as he declared his home was under siege, raided, and occupied by a large group of FBI agents. The Secret Service allowed the FBI to conduct its search, which Trump added was an unannounced raid. And now we understand the leftist media is saying, whoa, we got to stop calling it a raid. It's just a simple search. No, it's not a simple search. If you wanted to have a simple search, what you should have done was shown up with a subpoena. We need these records now. And of course, that may be a little bit difficult because the last time somebody showed up with a simple subpoena and said, hey, we need these papers, Hillary Clinton destroyed 33,000 of them. So maybe that's what they were thinking. Anyway, just thought I found that amusing. Just thought I'd let you know that sometimes I say it here and it comes out there. In this case, MSNBC. So let's talk a little bit more about these other fights in Wisconsin, Connecticut, Vermont, and Wisconsin, Minnesota. There we go. Okay. Anyway, let's get back to some of these other things. There's a big fight in the Senate race, one of a handful across the country that will likely determine if Republicans win back the chamber. GOP Senator Ron Johnson is being heavily targeted by Democrats. He faces a lone long shot primary challenger from educator David Schrader. He's going to get crushed. Democrat Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes is his party's all but certain Senate nominee after his leading rivals dropped out of the race in recent weeks and endorsed him. Barnes is also backed by national progressive champions such as Senators Bernie Sanders of Vermont, Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. Barnes is part of a primary field that includes 4 lesser-known Democrats. So lesser-known, nobody's reporting their names. President Biden narrowly carried Wisconsin as he won the 2020 election, and on Friday, Trump blasted the Republican State Assembly Speaker Robin Vos for not embracing his unproven claims that his 2020 loss to Biden was due to massive voter fraud. By the way, since we've been talking a little bit about the moderation of journalistic language, there you go. They didn't say false claims or lies about his unproven claims, which is more like journalism. It's good to see. Vos, who is the state's longest-serving assembly speaker, launched a controversial investigation into the 2020 election in Wisconsin, took a lead in passing a series of bills that tighten voter access in the state. He's resisted Trump's repeated calls to try and decertify the 2020 election results. Trump, who days earlier backed Vos's Republican challenger, urged those at the rally to fire Robin Vos. Democrat Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota faces a long-shot primary challenger as he seeks a second term. 3 Republicans are running in their party's primary, including doctor and former state Senator Scott Jensen, who landed the state's GOP endorsement. There's a special election today in the state's primarily rural 1st Congressional District along the state's southern border with Iowa to fill the seat left vacant after GOP Jim Hagedorn died of cancer in February. The winner will serve the remainder of Hagedorn's term throughout the rest of the year. Complicating matters is this is the only election in the district. It isn't the only election in the district. There's also a regularly scheduled primary. In the state's Minneapolis-centric 5th Congressional District, progressive first-term Democrat Representative Ilhan Omar, a member of the squad, is facing 4 primary challengers. One of them, former Minneapolis City Councilman Don Samuels, is endorsed by a handful of former Minnesota mayors and has spotlighted his law enforcement support while criticizing Omar for pushing to dismantle the city's police department. In Minnesota's 5th Congressional District, the Twin Cities southern suburbs, all eyes are on the November general election when Democrat incumbent Angie Craig and GOP nominee Tyler Kistner will face off in a rematch. In Connecticut, 3 Republicans are running in today's Senate GOP primary in Connecticut, with the winner facing off in November against Democrat Senator Richard Blumenthal. They are former State House Minority Leader Themis Clarides, businesswoman Leora Levy, and businessman Peter Lumai. It's been 40 years since a Republican won a Senate election in the blue state of Connecticut. Nobody's going to unseat Blumenthal. It's just not going to happen. But who knows? It depends on whether or not people listen to this broadcast and people who speak in terms like this broadcast does. If you love the Democrat Party, don't vote for a Democrat. We need to defeat Democrats everywhere possible to save the party. If you're able to do that, then the Democrats will be able to look at all of their squad members and their socialists and their communists and say, goodbye. You're destroying the party, because they are. In Vermont, the Senate seat held for nearly a half century by retiring Democrat Pat Leahy is up for grabs. Longtime Representative Peter Welch is considered the overwhelming frontrunner over 2 rivals in the Democrat primary. Former U.S. Attorney Christine Nolan, Army veteran Gerald Malloy, and investment banker Myers Mermel are seeking the Republican nomination. With Welch running for the Senate, there are competitive primaries in both parties for his open house seat. Republican Governor Phil Scott faces 2 primary challengers today. Activist Brenda Siegel is unopposed for the Democrat gubernatorial nomination. And so there you go. That's basically what's going on. You'll see some results beginning almost immediately. And we will bring you the results tomorrow. Yeah, it's very difficult. it's very difficult as a news guy to do something or to appear to be doing something that I roundly criticize. And that is the news media abandoning the truth and choosing sides. I am not choosing sides when I call for the defeat, the comprehensive and crushing defeat of the Democrat Party. I am not an advocate for the Republican Party. I am not. I'm an advocate for the United States of America. And the Democrat Party is decidedly anti-American. And people say, well, what do you mean the Democrat Party is anti-American? Well, let's take a look at what they stand for. They quash the First Amendment. They don't like religious freedom. They don't like free speech. The cancel culture is a creature of the left, and thus a creature of the Democrat Party. They don't like freedom of religion. They don't like free speech. And the free press. The free press has essentially turned itself in and done exactly what I criticize, which is abandoned truth and chosen sides. If the Democrat Party gets the sundering they deserve by the people of the United States, Americans, then the free press will have to reevaluate itself. It's already happening. But it's not necessarily because they have to reevaluate because it's the right thing to do. They're reevaluating because they're losing their butt in the ratings. And I'm not just talking about CNBC. I'm not talking about MSNBC, CNN. I'm not talking about just those people. Fox News. Fox News needs to follow the story wherever it goes. Now, I realize that it's very, very difficult, especially for somebody like me, to watch endless anti-American drivel spewing out of the mouths of MSNBC commentators and CNN commentators. It's exquisitely painful. As a matter of fact, I only do it when I have to. But I have to be honest with you. I've been watching a lot of CNN regarding this raid, and those people were extremely nervous about what had happened. Normally, the firebrands were talking that would say anything that hurt President Trump is okay, but they were actually concerned about what they were watching. It had never happened before, and they are right to be fearful. They, in large measure, have created this mess that we saw unfold last night. And now they're saying, oh my God, what have we done? And you've heard it. I just reported a story of an MSNBC commentator saying, for Christ's sakes, stop calling it a raid. It was a raid. It was. It was an abandonment of objectivity by the Department of Justice. It was a ripping off of the blindfold of Lady Justice. And so, when I talk about this comprehensive defeat of Democrats, it's for their own good. I sincerely hope that Ilhan Omar is turned out in the primary. I don't think it'll happen, but I really wish she would. And it's not because I think she's a rotten human being. There are a lot of people in Washington, D.C. that are just rotten human beings. They just are. But when I look at Ilhan Omar, I look at a young Somali girl that came to these United States when she was 9. And she was turned into a communist by virtue of the upbringing she received in this nation and her education. And once again, as we watch school board meetings being faced to deal with reality by parents from one end of the community to the other. We have to do something about what we teach our kids, and certainly in the university system. So once again, it is time for the people of the United States to reassert control of this nation. Elect Americans who are Democrats, not Democrats who hate America. For the same reason, elect Americans who are Republicans, if that's your choice, instead of Republicans who take advantage of America. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment. Pardon me, just a little cough. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number is 817-379-2172. People were chatting about my assertion that this is a nonpartisan broadcast, which it is. I know the difference. I know why I do this. Okay, I know why I do this. Let's see. Alan said, JD, what about the Trump-Pence election poster you had in your K-Sky studio? I used to work at KSKY. That was not my poster. I didn't put it up in there. I didn't. And I didn't really think about it that much because, like I said, it wasn't my studio. Nobody would have seen that if it wasn't for the fact that I started broadcasting my Case Guy show on Facebook. And that was why that was up there. And yeah, that was up there, but I didn't put it up there. What I'd like you to see is what I have in my studio now. See any Trump Pence posters anywhere? See any political posters anywhere? Nope. Will you ever? Nope. You won't. Why? The reason is because it's not my job. Will I have people from different political parties in here? Absolutely. I absolutely will. I'm looking forward to a president of the United States walking through that door and sitting down at this table and talking with me about the issues of the day. It's going to happen. And as far as being able to get both of the candidates in any given office or for any given office in this studio, I go after everybody that I possibly can for balanced coverage. Whether they take advantage of it or not is up to them. The way this works is this, is I called Hillary Clinton, President Obama, Joe Biden, 300 times each. That's my limit. I will invite a candidate running for president to this show 300 times. That was about once every 2 days. Phone call will do. You don't have to show up. Just make a phone call. No, I'm not going to make you look stupid. No, I'm not going to debate your politics. I'm interested in what you have to say. No takers. Did I have Republicans on? Yeah, because they would come. Is it because I was a Republican water carrier? Nope. It's because they said yes. Is that something that bothered me? Yeah, it bothers me. It does. It absolutely does. Let's see. What about your undying defense of Trump and his attempted coup? First of all, that was not an attempted coup. If you want to see an attempted coup, go back to what happened during the Trump administration when the FBI, the CIA, the Department of Homeland Security, and various other associated agencies tried to remove Donald Trump from office. That's a coup. What happened on January 6th was a peaceful protest. As a matter of fact, it was more peaceful than the peaceful protest that happened the summer before then. No Wendy's got burned down. No Target stores got looted. Nah. Let's see, I should have covered it up during my broadcast, or was it a Salem directed to have it up? I didn't have anything to cover it up with, Alan. I didn't care. I reported the story. I reported the story fairly, and I always have. Let's see. You would talk glowingly of Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick without ever disclosing that he was the owner of KBDT. No, I would not speak glowingly of Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick without ever disclosing that he was the owner of KBDT, because he wasn't the owner of KBDT. The owner of KBDT was Dallas Radio. Now it's owned by somebody else who speaks a completely different language. I can't make heads or tails out of it. Not only can I not make heads or tails out of the spoken word, I can't make heads or tails out of their alphabet. Yeah, so there you go. Let's see. Donald Trump was not in office when they investigated his Russian communication. What Russian communication? Oh, Mike, it's not personal attacks. Look. You stand up here. You sit behind this microphone, okay? And you cover things in what I believe to be an American basis. In other words, based on the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Federalist Papers, the Bill of Rights. And try not to sound, to some people, as partisan. And people get to ask. They are not. That was disproven. They are not out of line in calling me on it. It's perfectly fine. Okay, I know what I'm doing in here. I know what this broadcast is all about. I'm not a partisan dude. I'm just not. Because right now, as I've said time and time again, neither political party is doing anything to benefit this country. Neither political party is doing it. I mean, I'm just as angry at both of them. Okay? As a matter of fact, I'm hoping to start a third one to get rid of the Republican Party. So there you go. Thanks very much. Appreciate your time. I hope you enjoyed the Wells Report. I'll see you tomorrow. And that's a wrap. Charles Kim's Pacific Star Media has filed a $450,000 deal to buy. No, it's not from Dan Patrick. That's wrong. Yeah, that's wrong. Yeah, that's incorrect. Yeah, Dallas Radio bought the radio station from Dan Patrick. I know, I worked there. Okay, I know who the owners were. It wasn't Dan Patrick. Okay, he does own KSEV down in Houston. He does. And he is the governor of Texas. But vote out Democrats because we're trying to get control of the Democrat Party. The people of the United States need to be represented by a vibrant, healthy Democrat Party. That's not what we have. It's not what we have. The Democrat Party needs to be pro-American, and they're not. They hate the Bill of Rights. They hate the Constitution. They do everything they can. Yeah, that's why. Listen, I'm not talking about it during a presidential election year, okay? I'm not. I'm talking about it during a midterm. All I want the American people to do is send a message. And believe me, if the Republican Party was screwing up like art, and oh, by the way, if you don't misunderstand me, you know, the Christian Coalition, remember those people? Remember those people? I was just as much against those as I am the Squad. They can do it. They can screw this up. And if they were screwing it up, I would tell you not to vote for Republicans. But now it's the Democrats' turn. That is all there is. The Democrats' turn to malfunction. And I can point out that they're malfunctioning without being partisan. And that's what I do. Because like I said, I know what's in here. I know why I do this. Let's see. Election denials and voter suppression. There is no voter suppression. That is a Democrat talking point. And as far as election denials, once again, we don't know. You don't know. I don't know. None of us know. I do believe Republicans are doing a horrible job of bringing in their extremists. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, goodbye. Let's see. Democrat Party needs to stop acting like, yes, that's exactly right. They need to stop acting like anti-Americans because they are right now. And that's all there is to it. All right, God bless all y'all. I've got to go. I'm going to go enjoy the rain. Thanks very much for being here with us today.